Welcome to Paulse, where positive actions uplift lives and spark excellence. I'm your host, Paul D. Taylor Sr., and this podcast is dedicated to inspiring growth, developing leaders, strengthening schools, empowering families, and helping people become the very best version of themselves. Each episode features conversations with educators, community leaders, innovators, entrepreneurs, entertainers, and everyday people who are making an extraordinary impact through ordinary acts of excellence. Whether you're a teacher, parent, student, administrator, business owner, or someone pursuing purpose, you're in the right place. So settle in, take notes, prepare to be challenged, encouraged, and inspired. This is Paulse, because excellence isn't an accident. It's the result of positive actions taken every single day. So lean in, listen, learn, lead. Let's get started.
Welcome to Paulse, positive actions, uplifting lives, sparking excellence. We have a legendary coach with us today, very, very special guest. He coached both of my sons. One of my sons won 2 state championships with you. And so, Coach Duane Jenkins of the Lutcher High School Bulldogs. Welcome, Coach.
Well, thank you for having me. I was there for Paul right at the beginning, and then that was when I made my transition and became a head coach and missed out on the end of his career. But Josh was a really good player for us.
Yeah, man.
And did some good things for us. And more than all of that, compliments to you and your wife for raising 2 excellent male role models in the school building, and just really did things the right way.
Yeah, man. Thanks for that, man. It's been you probably are responsible for the 2 times in my life that I blacked out. Actually, no. One was Coach Tim, the first one, and the second one was you. Because it was 15 with Coach Tim, and then you turned around and did the same thing in 16 against the same team. So I'm gonna give a shout out to my big brother, because we just talked about that not long ago, because he worked with some guys from West Feliciana, and so we beat West Feliciana to go to the Superdome both times.
Yep.
So when Coach Tim did it, it was a goal line stand, and when we stopped and got that fumble, bro, I passed out. I blacked out. Like, I screamed so hard. And then the next year, it was the same thing on the goal line. Last play of the game, we win the game to go to the Dome against the same team. One was at home, the other one was over there at their place.
2016 was on the road at West Feliciana. Just an incredible environment. Obviously, and they were a team that was on the rise, had been there the year before, and they probably felt like they should have won the game in 2015.
Yeah.
And Lutcher was able to make some great plays on the goal line and overtime in a game that was a shootout back and forth. The game in 16 was a little lower scoring, a little more defensively, but the weather was a little different, a little kind of damp, cold, a little rain. But I think that was kind of the key for that team in 2016. You kind of look back on it and you realize in the semifinals you kind of played a slugfest, a real physical football game that had to be won, running the football, playing great defense, and then you turned around the next week in the Dome against a meet, and it was back to another shootout where you had to win a high-scoring game.
And we played against somebody who's currently in the NFL.
And a Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah,
Devonta Smith was the real deal, obviously.
He was a problem.
He was a problem, but and we had some young guys on defense. That was kind of probably the biggest change from that 15 team to the 16 team. We had a lot of guys back on offense, but it was a 15 team. They were tremendous defensively and lost a lot of those guys in the secondary. Obviously, Sully Lesh played against him when I was the head coach at St. James, and we couldn't block him.
He was a problem.
He was a problem for everybody. But I can tell you this, the thing that Sully, fast forward to 2016, I'm at Lutcher, and Sully's at Nichols. And they're playing his first college game is between the hedges at the University of Georgia, and Kirby Smart's first game as the head football coach at Georgia, and they couldn't block him. So I felt a whole lot better.
He gave them the business.
I felt a whole lot better for not being able to block him in high school with high school offensive linemen when a team in the SEC couldn't block him with SEC offensive linemen.
Shout out to Sully. Hey, go Colonels, because I am a Colonel, undergrad, master's degree, Colonel, but I'm at postgrad in Southeastern, so line up.
There you go.
You know, man, look, those were some exciting moments. But Lutcher High School, we play with the kids the cards that we're dealt.
There's no doubt about that. I try to explain that to people sometimes. Obviously, in this day and age where everybody talks about school choice and school selection and being able to go where you want, we kind of look at it every year. And I can tell you, like the last 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when we won the state championship in 2022.
Yes.
Out of our top 30 guys, 29 of the 30 guys had been in our school system since kindergarten. And if they hadn't been the few that weren't, all of them, some of them went to St. Peter Chanel, which is still a feeder for us.
Yeah,
they still live in the community.
Yeah.
Some people choose to send their kids to Catholic school for elementary school, but we get a lot of those kids as 7th graders, and they come through all the way through. The one kid that was kind of in our top 30 that wasn't at Lutcher High School or at a Lutcher High School feeder school all the way through was Coach Tim's grandson, Luke.
Yes.
Who played for us on that team. And the only reason why Luke wasn't is because his dad got transferred and he went to Texas for 6 years in the middle. But he started off at Paulina Elementary, went to Texas with his dad for work, but then transferred back as a freshman in high school. So out of the top 30 guys on the team that won a state championship, 29 out of the 30 had been in St. James Parish schools their whole school career. And the one that wasn't was the grandson of the head football coach that had been there for 25 years before, and the only reason why he had to move out of town for a brief period of time is because his dad got transferred for work.
Yeah.
And came back for high school.
Man, listen, I got into this discussion with one of the other coaches that I had on the program. That episode is going to air later on earlier in season 2. It's already aired by the time this one will play. But I was talking about select, non-select. Mm-hmm. And, I'm assistant principal at Ponchatoula High School. My 2 years there, we were a select school because our district had the magnet programs in the district, and our district had to, because Ponchatoula is not a magnet school, mm-hmm. but we actually had to play a select schedule. Mm-hmm. That's for basketball, football, baseball, right. And we're playing against people who can recruit, and it kind of bothers me. And so can you explain to me how that all works, and how has Lutcher been able to be so successful over the years?
Well, let's start with the first part of that question on select, non-select. Ever since that terminology has been used, I've had a problem with it. Mm-hmm. I think something that would have helped the public just kind of understand this whole situation even better, if we'd have just thought of it as traditional and non-traditional. Mm. If you're a traditional school, that means you have a traditional attendance zone, mm-hmm. and the people that live in your attendance zone go to school in your attendance zone. If you're a non-traditional school, that means you don't have a true attendance zone, and mm-hmm. you can bring in people from outside your attendance zone, and they can be eligible to play. I think that's a truer definition than select and non-select. I think,
right.
And it's easier to understand.
Yes.
Most people grew up in traditional attendance zones. If you live from this spot, this road to this road, this is the school you go to.
Or if you lived on this side of the river, you go to this one, you go to that side, you go to that.
Right. Let's talk about the river parishes. You live in St. James Parish, East Bank, Lutcher, West Bank, St. James, St. John Parish, East St. John, West St. John, St. Charles, Destrain, Hornville. It's easy for us.
It's easy.
We got a big dirty river that runs right down the middle of us, and that's where you go to school. So I think when you think of it that way, if you had a traditional attendance zone, you were a non-select school. If you had a non-traditional attendance zone where you can pull people from other places, you were a select school. So I think that's kind of the feeling. When it first started, it was maybe just all privates, and then they got into really defining it where, well, you had some public schools that were taking advantage of the same advantages that a private school might have, where you can go and get kids from outside of your attendance zone and bring them in. Mm-hmm. So that would give them the same. So they kind of put all of those schools together, and it kind of divided the LHSA up 50-50. I think for us at Lutcher, and I had this conversation today when I got interviewed by one of the news stations, was we don't have to teach our kids about the expectations. When you walk out on our field, you see that big billboard there that's got state championships on it. and there's 9 of them listed, and those are only teams that's listed there. When you go to other schools, you'll see playoff appearances, you'll see district championships, you'll see all of those things listed. But when you come on our campus, regardless of the sport, the only thing that gets the publicity, that gets a sign made or a banner hung, is a state championship. And then I think that's a piece of it. So when you walk on campus, you automatically know that the standard is the excellence of a state championship. And anything short of that, you might have a good year, you can feel good about yourself, but you're not going to be memorialized without it.
Right.
But the second part of that is, because we are a community school, and like I said earlier, a couple years ago we won a state championship, 29 of our 30 guys that go into school all the way through, those kids grow up showing up at that place and they see that billboard change. They see that sign change from 2003 to 2006, from 2006 to 2008. So they start seeing that, so they grow up with that expectation. And we've talked about it, like the kids that we have playing now, when you ask them, so these kids, they grew up and they watch Lunch Winfield lead us to a championship. When you talk to Lunch, he talks about John Trey Kirkland. When you talk to John Trey Kirkland, he talks about Gavin Webster. When you talk to Gavin Webster, he talks about Dustin Mitchell. So it's like those kids grow up, and at 6 and 7 and 8 years old, they're brought to the games. They see those guys play. They see those billboards change. So those expectations don't have to be taught. Other programs don't have that benefit. They have to come in and establish what the standards, establish what those expectations are, and we really don't. And it's because we've been a tight-knit community school for so long that it just becomes that expectation. Unfortunately for you and I, who played during a 20-year gap where we didn't win a state championship.
I always say that we were part of that foundation. We put those lights up there.
Right. So what happens is they had a ton of success at Lutcher, and if you study the history, like, and a lot of it is, and this is something that doesn't get brought up a lot when you start talking about Lutcher. We've got 9 state championships on our school, and when you start looking at those lists, those teams across the state that have that list, we're in the top 5. We're in the top part of the teams in the state with number of state championships won. But one of the things I think that separates us a little bit is all of ours have been won since schools have been integrated. Yes. And not every other school can say that.
Yes.
So all of our schools have won since Lutcher High School was combined with Cypress Grove.
Yes.
And white students and black students started coming to school together. And that's when we found our success as a school and as a community, was with the integration of schools. So when you start talking about that, shortly after integration, we won that first state championship in 1975.
Yep.
And you compete for another one the next year. You're right knocking on the door in 76, but then you win another one in 78, and you win another one in 83. And that was kind of that first spark of the glory days of Lutcher High School, and you saw that what could be. And then you had maybe a little lull there in the late 80s, early 90s, but we really started turning it back around in the late 90s, kind of. You had a great year the first year when Coach Tim was back, which would have been what your sophomore year. And kind of really sparked that next generation, and then we finally were able to get over the hump and get that state championship in 2003. And over the last 20 years, we've been able to roll them off. But I think all of that ties back together to the way the community supports it. Kids grow up seeing that. Kids grow up wanting to be that next guy. And they see those guys growing up. And you go to some communities, and when they're playing football in the backyard, they're talking about being the next Jerry Rice or Bo Jackson, or guys they play in the NFL today, Alvin Kamara, whoever that guy is. When you're in Lutcher, Louisiana, you grow up wanting to be the next John Trey Kirkland, the next Jarvis Landry, the next Gavin Webster, the next Sully Lesh. Like, that's the guys you grew up being. I'm sure for you, because you would have been right around that age, probably right about 6 or 7 years old with Terrence Jones playing, and then Will Urson and those guys when they were coming up. So those are the same. So it's been something that's evolved over time, and because a lot of people stay in that community, and it continues to perpetuate itself.
And Terrence Jones was a Heisman candidate at Tulane University, so he wasn't nothing to sneeze at.
Right.
You know?
But for the kids in Lutcher, it was him as a Lutcher Bulldog. They grew up wanting to be, not him as a Tulane Green Wave.
Yep.
And then it goes back to the same thing. Like Jarvis Landry, everybody knows about him playing for the Dolphins and the Browns and the Saints. But the kids in Lutcher remember him when he was in the purple and gold. Not at LSU, at Lutcher High School.
When he never would step off the field. He stayed on for offense. He stayed on for special teams, and sometimes he played defense too.
Yep.
Like if we needed him. So
Yeah,
it's like he was an all-around athlete, and you know, like that's an attribution to like the type of athleticism like the kids in our community came up with. You know, they came up with, like you said, that expectation of that this is what's expected of a quarterback. These are the deliverables for a linebacker. You know, defensive backs. Because we had some really good defensive backs that came through Lutcher as well. So I think that, you know, as far as like select, non-select, traditional, non-traditional, to have a program that holds its own, what I attribute it to is tradition. That like trad means to pass down. Tradition means to pass down. And every year, started, and I can trace it back. My freshman year, we went 2-8. Charles Hazard was the name of the coach. He was fired because he was there 1 year. That next year, my sophomore year, Coach Tim took up the reins, and we were in the playoffs every year after that. So, and it brought an excitement about, you know, the Lutcher program. But the thing that really made an impression on me as a man, as a grown man, even today, was how Coach Tim, back then I remember how organized he was. You know, he used to write in all capital letters, typewriter. He was like a typewriter. And his practice plans were all laid out, very easy to understand. We had our playbooks given to. He was very organized, and I think that was the thing that really built the foundation for the success that we would see once we got to the 2003 and you know, going forward.
Yeah, it was no doubt. Obviously, I came up a little bit behind you and played for Coach Tim, and then came back and coached with him for my first 11 years, 12 years of coaching. And we used to joke with him because I think I still have the ruler that he used to make those practice plans still in the office. But you can go and find those old files, and you kind of knew he had a routine and established that. And I think you talk about traditions, but I do think one of those things is having that routine. And I think one of the things that he was able to do, especially when he took over the program, was establish that continuity and gave you something that you can count on. Because the coaching staff kind of stayed together, and he was kind of able to build and kind of bring in some new guys, but it was never a complete turnover. And that's probably one of the things that you can see as an administrator now on the high school level, is how important having that continuity from a staff standpoint when you're talking about teachers, coaching staff, so that you're not completely having to teach the adults what the standards and expectations
and what the culture is,
and what the culture is, and that culture is able to perpetuate itself among the kids. Because the quickest way for the culture to fall apart is when you don't have the leadership at the top together. And when you can build a leadership team that can stay together, it continues to feed itself at that point. And I think that's what we've been able to do. I do think that was that 2016 team. So you go from 2015, you win the state championship with Coach Tim, and he retires. I do think that it made me uniquely qualified to be able to come in, to be able to just grab it and just run with it from there. Because I was so much entrenched in that program and the development of it there when we finally kind of turned that corner in 2003. Because 2003 was a rough season. Everybody remembers the end, but they don't remember the beginning when we were 0-3. They don't remember
the controversy with the quarterbacks and all of that stuff.
They don't remember what it was like after that EA game when we lost that EA, and everybody was kind of backs against the wall. And it was kind of us against the world at that point, and we were able to turn it around and really were able to go on that magical run through the playoffs. You're talking about a team that was able to go win 5 games after starting 0-3, and still lost another one, 6-4 in the regular season, and you go on and you win the state championship. And we were able to turn that corner a little bit right there, and from there, that momentum really started rolling. So I think when the opportunity came for me to come back, we had a lot of success when I was there as offensive coordinator, obviously. Had the opportunity to go and prove that I can do it on my own as a head coach. And so I had the experience as a head coach, but had the ties back to the program that I can kind of jump right in And the unique thing, I guess, there was I coached everybody there because I left when those guys that were going to be seniors were freshmen.
Yeah.
So I came back to kind of finish them out. Kind of got to see some of those guys as young guys, as 8th graders, and that was part of me coming back too. A lot of people don't know this, and this is a story I'll share. And I don't know if I've really told a lot of people about this, but shortly after Coach Duane retired, it might have been the same day he retired, a couple of players at Lutcher reached out to me and asked if I would come back and coach them because I was there when they were 8th graders and they wanted to play for me. Wow. And one of them was Aldontre Davis, who ended up going on and being one of all-state receiver for us, and he was a big piece of that 2015 team. But Aldontre started recruiting me to come back and coach him for his senior year, him and John Trey Kirkland.
Wow.
Because I had a relationship with them when they were 7th and 8th graders, and I left before their freshman year, and they were two of the people that reached out to me and asked me to come back to coach them for their senior season.
Oh, man, that's interesting. Like, that's your livelihood. And you walked across the river, almost walking on water, so to speak. But you left a job where you were solid.
Yeah,
you had just
I
made
built it.
I
made the turn. Like a lot of people don't like. When I went to St. James, it had fallen. They had 2 years.
2 years with zero wins,
with no wins, and the talent was still there. The community was still passionate. I tell people this all the time. I've been fortunate enough now to win some semifinal games, to get to state championship games, win 2 state championships back at Lutcher. A lot of big games won there. Like, one of the greatest moments of my career anywhere was that 2013 season at St. James, my first year. We're in a second round of the playoffs playing home against Sterlington. And Sterlington's a top 5 seed. And they're at the old field at St. James on the tracks. And it ends up being the last game that was played in that stadium. Mm-hmm. And we pull the upset of all of the upsets. We had gone on the road the week before, like a 23 seed, and won a game and got to host a game against a top team in the state. And we pull the upset at home. And it was just a great momentum. You make it to the quarterfinals in your first year after they had been on some hard times. And that will always be one of the greatest feelings or accomplishments that I've had in the coaching profession. And it was that year because we turned the corner. We got it back to where that program was supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And we did it a little ahead of schedule because we played a lot of young guys in that game. Mm-hmm. So when we played in the state championship in 2015, a lot of those guys had been playing now for 3 years.
Yeah.
And we were able to get back to the state championship game. And obviously, since I left and came back, we've had some success at Lutcher, but they've continued with Coach Valdez and Coach Davis to really have that thing up and rolling, and won a state championship and been beaten down the door and been right there in contention. It seems like every season, and probably this year will be no different.
One of the greatest supports that I see, and we always try to have conversation about community involvement and the community's involvement with education. Lutcher Quarterback Club, none like no other. They're second to none.
It's an entity all of its own. When people start talking about the success that we have as a football program and as our community, it's hard to explain to people what the Lutcher Quarterback Club is, because most people have booster clubs or organizations that function to help and assist and support. They do. But they're their own established business entity that's been running for 76, 77 years now. Yeah. So it's one of the oldest booster clubs in the state. But what they do on an annual basis, when you start talking about churning out the chicken dinners on a Tuesday night,
bro,
600 out the window.
Bro,
every
out
week.
The window.
Out the window.
There's not people sitting in the seats.
And there's another 100 people sitting in the seats. And everybody's like, that really happens. So what do y'all do at your booster club meeting? Most people have booster club meetings to talk about raising money. I said, no, the money's been raised already when we show up at the meeting.
Football.
We're talking about football now. And that's a whole nother unique experience that I don't know if many people outside of Lutcher really even understand. And I know I can tell you from bringing coaches in that's come to be part of my staff since I've been there, and really got to learn and got to experience it, they're like, there's nothing like this anywhere else. They've been places. Now, they do great things for not just football, but for all sports. They raise a lot of money, they give back, but their ability to show up and have people show up and do the work that it takes to put 600 lunches out the back window is incredible.
And these guys ain't no spring chickens.
Right. But then, and that's what the next thing is, that when I try to explain it to people, they were like, well, how do you get people to do that? Because most people are only in booster clubs during the length that their kid is involved in the program. And that's the piece that separates Lutcher's quarterback club from everybody else. Most nights, if we've got 100 people in a room, 75, 80% of them don't have a kid on the team. Don't have a kid still in the program. Their kids played for us. Their grandkids might have played for us, but they currently don't have anybody there. But it's such ingrained into our community that they show up every Tuesday night.
And they're there to support the school.
Right. And people show up every Tuesday night to buy those lunches out the window to support the school. So it's super unique. I think it's often other schools try to replicate it, but it's so ingrained in the community.
You don't have that level of commitment.
Right. And it's unbelievable when you start talking about the commitment that those guys make, because in a lot of ways it's like running a restaurant.
Yeah.
You got to be there. You got to prep the food. You got to cook the food, and that's a 2-day process.
Yes.
And those guys are volunteering. Yeah.
And again, they're serving chicken, and they're not spring chicken. Like, these guys are veterans, they're grandpas, they got,
most of them are retired.
Most of those guys are retired, but it's something for them to do to contribute to the community. And I think that's the piece that I really would like to drill down on and bring out, because what I see in different communities are, like you said, they try and fail. They have a booster club, and it's really not boosting the program. I think that the quarterback club really helped to fund a lot of the capital projects around the school will help the school district focus their funds on instruction.
It's been something that over those 70 years, they've had so many opportunities that they've been able to put so much money back into the school, so much money back into the facilities, and it's something that they're proud of. And I think that's part of it. Like, it's not just showing up there to try to raise some money for this team. And I think that's, if we really narrow it down and get to the nuts and bolts of what separates it, is most booster clubs, when they're established, you kind of have a lifespan that the people in it are going to be there for 4 years for the length of their kid being involved in a program. And maybe you get somebody who has 2 sons, so maybe it's 6 or 8 years that they'll be involved with it. Yeah. But then once their kid's done, they move on. So it becomes about providing help for my kid and the team that they're on.
Yeah.
Where the Lutcher Quarterback Club is a program supporter. So it's there for the long haul.
Yes.
So we have a group of men that show up and volunteer and work and put that time in, and then they'll do it for 8, 10, 12, 15, 16 years, but then there's another group coming behind them to come and take that
torch.
Take that mantle and keep running with it. Yeah. And you're starting to see it now. Like, we're kind of in a little transition right here where we've got some younger guys that are taking some of those leadership roles, and guys who are moving in. Some of those, the current chief quarterback and the guy who runs the big fundraiser that supports all other sports. They call it the $100 ticket night, the comedy night. It's going by different names, but both of those guys are younger than me. And they're starting to grab that baton and run with it. And the crazy thing is one of their dads has been big time in it for a long time. His grandfather was in it back in the day, and another one, his father-in-law, had been in that same role. So it's like, it's just picking it up for the next guy. And that's one of the things that's been able to separate that group, and why it's been able to succeed for such a long time, is because there's always been somebody there to pick up the baton and carry it next. And look, we've got some great guys who've been involved with it really for probably the last 40 years. They kind of got in young, and they've been carrying a load for a long time. And it's good to, I think they're excited to see that next generation grab
it up
it
and go with it. Yeah.
So it can be around for another 75 years.
Yeah. Hey, look, you're the head football coach, but you're also the athletic director. And the reason why I'm bringing it up this way is because not only do we have state championships in football, we have 9. That's, like you said, top 5 in the state. But we have swimming, we have baseball. Congratulations on this year. Baseball championship, softball championships.
Powerlifting. Boys and girls.
Powerlifting.
We're up to 61 at the school, 61 state championships across all sports.
So how do you display that? Like that's got to be a task in and of itself.
So we were running out of wall space. It was something that Coach Tim had started when we built the new gym. We had started hanging banners on the back wall of the gym, but we were out of space.
Wow.
So when we renovated the gym last year, like we moved into the newly renovated new gym this past fall. We made a Hall of Champions. So now there's the hallway when you walk into the gym. There's the sport, and underneath the sport is listed the years that they won a state championship. So there's 61 of those dates now on the wall. We got the most recent ones updated to add. This year we claimed 3 more. When you talk about baseball, who's been on a great run here over the last 5 or 6 years under Coach Jensen and his leadership. We've got powerlifting, girls powerlifting under the McGinleys. They've won 19 of them. And all of them in a row. The only year that they don't have a state championship it was the year that it got canceled because of COVID. So they'd have 20 of them already in a row. So they are the standard of girls powerlifting in the state. And then our boys powerlifting team won their second one of a back-to-back this year. So that's back-to-back years where we've been able to sweep boys and girls powerlifting. So we've had a ton of success. Since I've been AD, we've won state championships in baseball, both powerliftings, boys and girls. We've won a softball state championship. We've played for another one. We've won a dance state championship when the couple years where they were sanctioned by the LHSA. So we've been there. We've had deep runs in volleyball. This year we started flag football. Our girls won a district championship in the first year of flag football.
Wow, come on.
Made the playoffs, so it was pretty exciting for them. We've had one of our best runs in girls soccer over the last couple of years. So it's a sport that's continuing to grow. Boys soccer hosted a playoff game this year, so we've really found ways. I think our girls basketball team has really grown over the last 3 years. We've gotten better and better each year, more and more. They've made the playoffs. They've won a playoff game. So it's a whole thing, and that's been one of the things. Obviously, a lot of people know me as the head football coach, and that's probably where I get the most criticism. But one of the things that I spend a lot of time on is really trying to make sure that we provide what we need for all of our sports to have that same level of success. And it starts with having coaches who are committed and believe that their sport needs to be the most important. I don't want coaches that want to be second fiddle.
Right.
I want them to want their sport to be number one. And that's okay. Like a lot of people think of us as a football school. I'm like, we're not a football school. We're an all sports school, and we want to stay that way. But I want all of our coaches across the board to want their sport to be number one. And it causes some conflict sometimes. There's some headbutting, especially when we're a school that has to share some athletes. But I think it allows everybody to flourish. And look, we had some individual track champions this year, boys and girls. I think we got a chance again. We've got some really talented, especially females, coming up. They'll have another chance to maybe stay in that number a little bit longer. Our boys, we obviously had Ashton Stark this year, who's one of our better football players who just committed to Kansas State to play football, but he was a great sprinter for us. And in the old days, you'd have had him back for his senior year in track, but in this new world of college athletics, he's a football star, and he'll be a midterm grad.
Wow!
So he'll be at Kansas State this spring. So he won't hit. So his junior season in track was actually his senior season in track. It was his last opportunity, and he knew that going in. That was kind of his plan, was to be able to be a midterm enrollee. So he really focused the end of his junior year wanting to be able to win a state championship in track and field. He qualified in 3 events, and he was right there. He won the long jump, finished second in the 100. So he was able to accomplish that goal of winning an individual state championship, knowing that was his last chance as a junior.
Wow, that is phenomenal. Hey, I'm gonna get you out on this part. From what I'm gathering, and as you talking, I'm thinking about like over the years and how important it is to pass. We don't just pass down championships. We build championships. We pass down a tradition, and whether it's the quarterback club, whether you're talking about the football program, whether you're talking about the basketball program, and how the kids who are coming up are looking at the students who are modeling for them what excellence looks like. Talk to me about that. That how is it that these kids know what the standard is, as you said earlier, but how is it giving these? How is it? It's a phenomenon.
Right.
It's really
but
it's not common to see how that tradition is built.
But I'll say this: it's something that can be lost in an instance. It really is, and it's got to be you've got to stay committed to it, and there's some hard choices that have to come with that. There really is at times, and I think me as a coach, as I've grown and gotten older, I've been able to realize that with more and more experience. Me as a person, I want to save everybody. I want to be there. I want to give them every opportunity. I want to find a way to get that kid, because a lot of times that kid needs our program a whole lot more than our program needs that kid. And I think there were a couple of times during my career that I was willing to stretch what that standard was to try to save everybody. And it didn't lead to a good result. And it takes a lot to step back and learn that and understand it, because you want to be everything for everybody. But to be successful and to be able to get everybody, that you got to be able to set where that baseline is. And I can tell you that coming out of COVID, we really decided, you know what, we're going to make sure that we're going to hold these kids accountable. They're going to have to not just be committed, but they have to be invested in what we're doing.
You got to put skin in the game.
They've got to be invested. It can't just be us committed to them.
Right.
They got to be committed to us. They got to put some investment in, and that a lot of times that's just time.
Ooh, wait, hold up. See, you just struck a nerve right there. When you said it can't just be us committed to them, but they have to commit to the program as well. How can they commit to the program? Like in what ways do they commit to the program? How do they show that?
It's investment. It's an investment, and a lot of times it's just an investment of time, and putting your time in. But more than that, it's being open and being able to be coached and understand that you do have to make some hard choices. You might have to separate yourself from some people that are your boys in a community, that's your friends in school, because they don't have the same goals as you have. And we talk about that with our team, is what that investment looks like. So just let's take the summer, for instance. We have our summer program. We bring our guys in 4 days a week.
Still doing 2 days?
We go 4 days. We just go in the morning.
Okay.
So we go in the morning. We go about 3 hours. They got 24 days in the summer. So we're not asking for a ton of your time, but we're asking you to put your time in. Well, at the end of the summer, you put that investment in. You've showed up every day. You've put that chip in. You put your work in. How fair would it be for me now that you put that investment in for the guy who didn't put that investment in, to be able to show up and still get reap the same benefits as you? So being able to be coachable, showing up, and what happens is now kids are able to coach themselves. But really what I wanted to get to is post-COVID, in making that commitment to making those kids be investment. I can't talk about the success that we've had since 2021 without mentioning one person, because he was a culture setter. He was a person, we talk about it in our quarterback room all the time, about being a thermostat or being a thermometer. Which one are you? Because leaders have to be thermostats.
Yes.
They can't just tell me the temperature of the room. They got to set the temperature of the room.
Got to set the tone, yes.
They got to set it. And we can't talk about our football program today in 2026 without talking about 2021 and a sophomore named Lutcher Winfield. because he was a thermostat as a sophomore. And he made sure that everybody in that building knew that this is the way we're going to carry ourselves. And he carried himself that way in the building. He carried himself that way in the locker room. And he carried himself that way on the football field. And when your best player is able to do all of those things and he can be a thermostat, it's hard for anybody else to choose to do something else.
Right.
They not meet that standard. Because when the best guy is exceeding the standard in everything that he does, everybody else falls in line. And that's why, look, I don't think our 2022 team was the most talented team that we've had, but we might have had the most dynamic leader that ever walked the halls of that school. I'm not saying walked in the locker room. I'm saying walked the halls of the school, because that's how he carried himself. So there was no doubt, and I've heard many people come to me kind of since then, because I've been fortunate. I've coached a lot of guys that were really good football players. That's gone on and had a lot of success. But at the end of his senior season, season they put together, I went out there and put it out there to everybody that this is a guy you want in your locker room if you're a college football program. He's going to make your football team, he's going to make your school better. Mm-hmm. And we just couldn't get anybody to give him that opportunity. But guess what? Somebody gave him the opportunity.
Ooh la la.
This past season, their backs were against the wall. Their season was on the brink. And he got his opportunity. And he showed, like, it wasn't a shock to me. I saw him do it before. But everybody on that team rallied around him. They were 2-5, I think, when he came in a game. They were 2-5. They were losing by 3 touchdowns. He leads them to a win. Next thing you know, they're playing in a bowl game again.
Yeah.
Like, on the verge of losing everything at that season, and he's able to do, because I think that goes back to what we talked about. When your best player epitomizes everything that you set is what that standard needs to be, and he's your hardest worker, it's hard for anybody else to do anything different. And what he was able to do for us as a football program is he showed all those other guys what it looked like. So Rashad Sterling, who's at Tulane now, he picked up on that. He was the same way. He was going to come in, he was going to work hard, he was going to take care of his business on and off the field. He was going to come in, get a quality workout. He was going to work as hard or harder than anybody could. And it perpetuates itself. Trenton Chaney had success early in his career, but he was able to grow and become a great young man. And now he's going to have his opportunity to have his breakout season this year at UL.
Wow.
So you saw it. And then, so now you got Ashton Stark, who's the next guy up, and Jaden Michael, who's going to UL to play offensive line, the first offensive lineman we've had go to FBS school in 50 years out of Lutcher.
Wow.
It's like those guys, you talk about how good they are as football players, but every one of them
they're good men.
Are good men.
Yeah.
And some of them maybe didn't start out that way.
Right.
But they developed. They bought in. They learned. They let people influence them.
And that's what that
right
the tradition and the culture, that's what it does. It forms boys into men, you know, and not just because you know, and I don't want people to think that Lutcher is just an athletic school. No. Because before the new SPS, Lutcher is an A school. Mm-hmm. It may be a B now, but it's not a C or D school. It's academics and athletics.
I like to talk about that because this will go into the educational piece a little bit. And this is a philosophy of Coach Jenkins. Nobody else has to agree with this. I think the number one goal for any public school is to serve that community. And you can't put a letter grade on that. No. You can't put a letter grade on what you do to serve your community. So for us, in our community, we've got some different factions that need to be served. You've got kids that are going to be top of the line, high end, college bound, post college, going master's, doctorate degrees. You've got to be able to accommodate those kids and give them those opportunities. We've got kids that are going to be great athletes who need to have the opportunity to develop athletically. We've got kids who are going to go into the military and serve. We've got to give those kids the opportunity. We've got kids that are going to go directly into the workforce,
blue collar,
and be hard workers and make more than all of those other people, starting at an early age, at 19 years old, 20 years old, out the door going to make $67,000 a year. And I'll bring that up because 2 of our guys off of the 2025 team, they didn't go to college. They didn't go play college athletics. But I get to talk to them, and they're great in their career already. They're working for a former Lutcher Bulldog, who's a CEO of a company. And he called me one day and said, Coach, I'm looking to hire two guys that are going to be starting up, kind of entry-level position, but we'll train them, we'll get them level. You got anybody? I recommended 2 kids, and they both graduated from high school in May, started working in June or July, and they're finishing up their first year of just on the job working, and both knocking it out of the park, going to be tremendously successful in their lives, developing some skills. But it was for them, our school, we needed to prepare them for what their life was. And guess what? The state can come up with whatever SPS score they want. That's not what's important, because you as a parent, what are you looking for in a school? Where can my kid go and grow to become the best whatever they're going to do with the rest of their life? And it just needs to be safe, and then the opportunities need to be there. And I really hope that for us as a school, and even us as a state, and you start talking about it, I hope people don't lose sight of that by getting caught up in what these scores are based on standardized tests, because the number one job for that school is to serve the community where that school is located.
Yeah.
And you can't put a test score on that.
No.
And you can't, because for us in our community, we need to have a place where kids can go and have opportunity to achieve high academically. It needs to be safe, but opportunity for them to grow athletically, emotionally, academically. It's got to be all of those things. And I think that's what we do a good job of.
Man, you know, talking about positive actions, uplifting lives, sparking excellence, the Lutcher program epitomizes that in what it passes down, how it helps to develop young people, male and female. You know, we talked more about football and that kind of stuff, but I can see, you know, for example, like you said, the powerlifting team, the girls powerlifting team, 19 straight championships. Like that's phenomenal, and I think that, you know, that's an indicator of what's going on and off the field. And as Coach Tim used to say, perfect practice makes perfect play. So I mean, I commend you. I commend all of the hard work that you and your coaching staff are doing. You guys are showing tremendous results. And listen, I'm gonna sit back and continue to cheer on and brag. My brother is at Exxon in Baton Rouge bragging about Lutcher. I'm in Tangipahoa Whole Parish bragging about Lutcher. We gonna always brag about, you know, about our hometown, because I'm proud of where I'm from, and I'm never gonna forget where I'm from. And I just want to congratulate you guys on all of your success and continued success, and, you know, just fight the good fight, bro. Because, you know, as we always say, bro, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, the size of the fight in the dog. Hey, man, positive actions, uplifting lives, sparking excellence. Thank you, Coach Duane Jenkins.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you coming, man. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for sitting with us today on the Paulse Podcast, where positive actions uplift lives and spark excellence. We hope today's conversation encouraged you, challenged you, and gave you something you can apply to your own life. If you enjoyed this episode, please help us grow by sharing it with your family, friends, co-workers, and anyone who believes in making a positive difference. Be sure to follow Paulse on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and RSS. And subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcast so you'll never miss a new episode. Remember, every great change begins with one positive action. Until next time, keep uplifting lives, keep pursuing excellence, and keep making a difference. I'm Paul D. Taylor Sr., and this has been the Paulse Podcast. God bless, and we'll see you next time. Listen, learn, lead. Peace.